Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hello everyone. Welcome to another video on the topic of student engagement. My name is Sabrul Karim Alias from University Science Malaysia. In the previous video, I have discussed about student engagement, the continuum of student engagement. On one hand, we have students highly or totally engaged. On the other hand of the spectrum, we have students totally disengaged, and in between we have students partly or partially engaged, and then as they go along and drifting slowly toward disengagement, partially disengaged, and finally totally disengaged. And I've discussed on the different kind of behaviors that we can observe when students are highly or totally engaged or partially engaged, totally disengaged, and so on. So in this video, I'm going to discuss more on student engagement on the three dimension or the three elements that would ensure students are highly or totally engaged. And if we understand this very clearly, we will take all the necessary steps and strategies to ensure that our students are totally engaged. So the true meaning of student engagement, that is basically what I hope to explain in this video. So let's dive in now, shall we? So now, if we want to get students to highly engage in our classroom, it has to be done by design. It cannot just by chance. So the way we design our course, the way we design our lesson plan, the kind of activities, and how do we use the time within the 1 hour session, for example, has to be done by design, purposely designed. So here I would like to share these are the so-called three elements of student engagement. So the true meaning of student engagement is by addressing these three elements, and we can design our course in such a way to have these three elements integrated seamlessly. The first one is behavioral engagement. Second one is called emotional engagement, and the third one is called cognitive engagement. So let's now look at these so-called three interconnected dimensions of student engagement. The first one here, let's look at behavioral engagement, and as you can see in the diagram here, this looks like what call this the timing belt in our car, and we have these three rolls here, and in order for the whole system to work smoothly, in order to achieve the highest level of student engagement, all these three elements, behavioral, emotional, and cognitive, has to be designed properly and work in harmony. So the first one here is behavioral engagement. These are basically the actions and behaviors learners take during learning, which may support or hinder learning, easily recognizable by teachers, encompasses students' effort, persistence, participation, and compliance. For example, submit assignment on time. So in other words, to put it simply, behavioral engagement is something that we can observe. When students are behaviorally engaged, we can see that they are actively participating, they are doing things together with the colleagues, with their peers, with their friends in the group. They are showing compliance. So for example, when the teachers ask questions, and they will always be the first who will raise their hand and answer the questions. They always look very participative, very active, and this is a kind of positive behavioral response that we want to observe when students are highly engaged. So it's all about participation and also compliance, obedience, and so on. Another element in students' engagement is so-called emotional or affective or relational engagement. So affective dimension of learning. Emotional engagement is part of the affective dimension of learning. This is basically we can observe through students' emotional responses to learning. We are talking here about the positive responses. Students' feelings of interest, happiness, anxiety, and anger during achievement-related activities. Engage in discussions, pose questions, seek help when needed, and exhibit curiosity. So we can tell that the students are emotionally engaged when they show a positive emotional response. They are happy, they are showing, they are showing that they're having fun, they are working together, they are enjoy the moment, instead of showing the negative response, which we do not want, such as anxiety and the feeling of being isolated or not being given attention. So that's negative responses can get the students into they can start to get disengaged from the class. So what we want here, when we observe a positive emotional response or responses, then we know that the students are now emotionally engaged. Then the third component, when the behavioral engagement is there, when emotional engagement is there, then we can get a very good and effective cognitive engagement. This is where we can design activities to get the students to engage cognitively. And this is where we talk about the Bloom taxonomy. We engage the students at the low level of cognition and also at a higher level of cognition, the higher order thinking and also the lower order thinking. So in cognitive engagement, the students have to invest some mental effort. So there's some mental effort here involved, because they have to think. They have to put their thinking cap and start thinking. And how do we know that they are cognitively engaged? These are some of the observable action. They are planning their own things, the task when we are giving them the task, they will start to plan together with the group members, if this is a group activity, monitoring their own progress, setting goals, solving problems, and seek challenge. If you watch the previous video when I talk about the continuum of student engagement, we talk about when students are highly engaged, they are displaying or showing the characteristics of student self-directed learners or self-regulated learners. They are independent, showing the behaviors of independent learners. So this is what we want to achieve in getting students to highly engage in our classroom. So these are the three essential so-called interconnected dimensions of student engagement. Let's look at this from in another way in this diagram. So we have three elements just now. Behavioral engagement. This is the quality of students' participation in the classroom. So the key word here is participation. These are the kind of behavior when we can see that they are working together, they are participating actively in any given task. How do students' patterns of behavior and participation in the classroom affect their motivation, performance, and understanding of academic content? So here we are looking at if they are behaviorally engaged, this could mean that they have motivation, they have the desire to be part of the learning community or in the group. So they are showing positive behavioral reaction, that showing that they are behaviorally engaged. On the emotional or affective or relational engagement, we look at here the quality of students' interaction in the classroom. So we can ask a question, to see whether the students are emotionally engaged. We are looking at the quality of the interaction, not only just the interaction, but the quality of the interaction. So we can ask our questions. How do students' ways of relating to their teachers and peers affect their motivation, performance, and understanding of academic content? And the third one is cognitive engagement. Here we are looking at students' psychological engagement in academic tasks, including their interest, ownership, and strategies for learning. And we can ask these questions to see whether our students are cognitively engaged. How do students' emotional and cognitive investment in the learning process affect their performance and understanding of academic content? So these three elements are interconnected. We cannot have only 2 out of 3 or 1 out of 3. We need all these three: behavioral, emotional, as well as cognitive engagement. When we have all these three dimensions of student engagement nicely done as part of our learning and course design, then the chances are we can get a true student engagement in our course. The chances we can get students to be highly engaged in our course, in our classroom. So as a summary, the true meaning of student engagement is when we have all these three elements embedded or integrated in our course design, in our lesson design seamlessly. So we have behavioral engagement, affective or emotional engagement, and cognitive engagement. When we have all these three, students will get hooked. When they get hooked, that's basically they are highly engrossed, they are highly immersed in the learning environment. So we now have a true active learning environment, immersive learning environment, and the so-called optimum learning can happen within this environment. So I think that's about all for this video about the true meaning of student engagement and the three elements or the three dimensions of student engagement that we need to understand and we need to address when we design our lesson, any lesson, in order to achieve the total or highly engaged students in our classroom. So thank you very much for listening. I hope I have given great value for your time, and I will see you in another video on this topic again. Thank you. Bye bye.